Hi, everyone. Welcome to Ad Age Remotely. I'm Janine Poggi, Assistant Managing Editor here at Ad Age. Thanks so much for joining us. And a special thank you to our sponsor, Verizon Media, for making this live stream happen. With movie theaters shuttered for a good part of 2020 and few blockbuster releases, brands who had been advertising on those screens had to pivot their strategies. At the same time, National CineMedia, which sells ad inventory and movie theater screens, also had to think differently about its business, expanding into some new categories. Now, as we see movie theaters reopen and people getting comfortable returning, we are seeing NCM enter a new phase of pandemic advertising. As we look to celebrate the movie industry this Sunday with the Oscars, today I am joined live by Scott Felenstein, Executive VP and Chief Revenue Officer at National CineMedia, to discuss the state of movie theater advertising. Hey, Scott.
Hey, Jeannie, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Getting excited
Thanks.
for the Oscars.
Yes, we're a couple of days away, and I don't know who's seen all of the movies or have heard of all of the movies, but it certainly should be an interesting one given the past year.
For sure, definitely a different time than usual. I usually spend most of December going to see as many of the nominated films as I can, and wasn't totally able to do that this year, but looking forward to it anyway.
How many have you seen?
I've seen two of the best pictures, and normally I see all the best pictures and try to see all the ones for the big categories.
Well, before we get started, if you're watching on our social channels and you like what we're doing here on Ad Age Remotely, please like, subscribe, share, or retweet this post. And if you have any questions, you can leave them on our social channels, and we will try to get to them during this conversation. So obviously, like we said, Oscars are this Sunday, and they come following a year with few blockbuster releases. What are you seeing as it relates to consumer behavior now that we're seeing more theaters opened?
Well, it's been great the last couple of weeks to see kind of the transformation on what's going on in the movie business. If you look at what's been going on around the world, it's been really exciting. The movie Demon Slayer that came out in Japan in December became the highest grossing movie in the history of the country. Detective Chinatown 3, which you may or may not have seen. I didn't see it, but it became the highest 3-day opening for a film ever, mostly over in China. Did incredibly well. Almost $400 million. That movie's grossed almost $700 million. And what that's been telling us is there's a huge amount of pent-up demand, and we saw that play out when Godzilla versus King Kong came out. The movie did almost $50 million opening weekend, and that was with a day-and-day release. So if you wanted to, you could watch the movie at home. It just proves that people are excited to get out and watch a movie like that on the big screen. The movie's grossed almost $80 million since opening in the United States and almost $400 million international. So we know there's a tremendous amount of pent-up demand. We know there's a great amount of content that's stacked up from Memorial Day weekend all the way through the end of this year and all the way through next year. So it's really exciting to see people come back to theaters.
Yeah, and as we rapidly approach summer, like you said, big months, obviously, for movie releases. What are you expecting in terms of consumer behavior and just the willingness to return to the theaters?
Well, the great thing with the vaccine rollout is that's accelerated. So many people are getting vaccinated. I got my second vaccine actually early this morning.
Exciting. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm very excited. My oldest son got vaccinated. My wife's been vaccinated. So that's moving really quickly. And I think that's what's spurring people to start to get out and go to sporting events and go to movies and go out to dinner and things like that. So as people get more and more comfortable, we think certainly by Memorial Day, a lot more people will be comfortable, and you're going to see a lot more content up on the big screen, a lot more opportunities for people to get out to theaters. So we're anticipating a big second half, starting with Memorial Day with the summer blockbuster season. And if you read what a lot of the Wall Street people that cover the movie industry are predicting, they're predicting the same thing, that people will be back in theaters in a big way, certainly starting Memorial Day, but running through third and fourth quarter of this year, which is exciting for us, given what we do.
So as this is all happening, what are you seeing from brands who last year pretty much didn't have the opportunity to advertise in movie screens at all? What is the appetite now from them, and what are they looking to do?
Well, the interesting thing is we've spoken to more clients over the last year than probably any time in our career, because this medium allows you to get to so many more people and have conversations. And we had a lot of conversations with brands all through the pandemic, keeping them abreast of what was going on in our industry. And the overwhelming theme, I'd say, for most of those conversations was kind of support. When we went through last summer and even into the fall, everybody was rooting for us. There were clients that stayed with us that were up on screens once they opened, even though we had relatively small audiences. And now that the audiences are starting to come back and now that people are getting more comfortable, we're feeling a lot more interest in coming back on screen. We have brands that have come back recently with Godzilla versus King Kong. Lots of brands that we anticipate will be coming back starting in May and then certainly in the second half of the year. So all that support that we felt kind of through all the time during 2020 will certainly play out on screens over the next couple of months. So we're excited about that. We're excited to see all of our big partners come back.
Any marketing categories in particular that you're surprised to see back now or are coming back in a bigger way than perhaps other categories?
Well, obviously, there's the new category that's grown tremendously, which is the streaming category. You have all these new streaming services out there, and
which technically could be a competitor because we saw during the pandemic, streamers really benefit from people staying home and consuming more content. So I'm curious, how that even also is part of the conversation as you see more people adopting streaming services.
Yeah, that's been an interesting phenomenon. So I think what's happened is we all watch, call it TV. We all watch TV differently now. Back in the day when you turn on your TV, you'd go to one of those linear channels and see what's on. And I think now that we're all home, we're all watching what's on those new streaming services, whether it's Amazon or Peacock or Disney Plus. We want to see what's on. The reality is the average moviegoer only goes to 5 or 6 movies a year. And for you, when you go to the movies, it's a night out. So we can all stay at home if we want every night of the week and cook dinner, but we don't because we like to go out to dinner. It's something to do. It's the same thing with moviegoing. There's always been great content to watch at home, but if you're going to make the decision that over the weekend you want to do something, going out to the movies is a night out. It's a different experience. It's a communal experience. It's a much different way to experience the content. I think what you're seeing with the streaming services, they're having a real impact on linear TV as so much of the viewership has shifted over from linear TV onto non-ad supported streaming services, which has caused, a challenge for brands and for agencies to figure out where do I find those eyeballs that I was able to find in linear TV a year ago because they're not there anymore. They've moved to other places. And cinema is a great place to find those eyeballs. We've always been a great opportunity for brands to extend their reach. We reach a young audience. We reach a multicultural audience. We reach a lot of cord cutters and like TV viewers. So we've always been able to add unique reach as a complement to TV, but now we're also a great place to replace some of the GRPs that maybe you can't buy in linear TV that you were able to buy a year ago.
So you're seeing those streamers come and advertise on the movie screens. Any other categories in particular that have shown an interest?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we do really well with the auto category and the wireless category and the insurance category. Those categories all do well for us. Entertainment's a big category for us. So all those advertisers are coming back. They were the retail category. They were all big supporters of the medium in the past. And I think there's some new brands that are looking at cinema that maybe didn't look at cinema in the past because they've got to look for other places to reach audience, other places to find unique reach.
And during the pandemic, NCM had a pivot, of course. At one point, there wasn't, I'm sure, much business happening. And you entered some new screens like ATMs and restaurants. Can you talk about those new opportunities and how NCM looked to keep business going during that time?
Yeah, we kept our business going in the beginning just with our digital business. We built a nice digital business where we can re-engage moviegoers when they're not in our theaters. So that's been great for us, and it's good that we established that a few years ago. But now what we're doing is we're getting into the digital out-of-home space. We're in ATMs in all 7-Elevens through our relationship with ATM.tv. We're in supermarkets with Coinstar units, and we're in restaurants on the Ziosk platform, which is terrific for us. The great thing is it allows brands to reach the same audience in different places. You can now reach moviegoers when they're getting cash in an ATM at a 7-Eleven. You can reach them when they're bringing their change into the supermarket for Coinstar, and you can reach them when they're getting dinner at a Olive Garden restaurant or an Outback restaurant on the Ziosk platform. So we're looking at places where we can find consumers at scale on screens that are places that complement the audience that we have in cinema. So this has been a great way for us to extend our reach and find consumers in other places, and then allow brands to reach those consumers in other places when they're not in our theaters.
Any other opportunities that you're looking at right now, or any other reach extensions that you're eyeing at this point?
Yeah, I can't speak to anything specifically, but if I think about it this way, we're looking at any other opportunities where there are digital screens that reach audiences at scale and an audience that really complements the movie-going audience. So this way, if a brand is coming to NCM and they want to advertise on our, on our screens and then on our digital platforms, and we can extend that to other places at scale, those are opportunities that we're going to consider. And I think that's what we've done with restaurants, with ATMs, and with the Coinstar units in supermarkets.
And you mentioned your data business. How are you looking at that moving forward? We're talking a lot about the cookieless future and all of those kinds of things. How does your data business play a part moving forward?
I think it's a really important part of our overall media strategy. A few years ago, we had just a handful of first-party data records. We've built that out to a significant number. We're going to be reaching close to 250 million first-party data records, and to be able to use that in conjunction with our other media assets, I think is really valuable, and it's what the marketplace is looking for from a media company.
Is there any concern over, as we move away from the cookie, or is it the first party data that you're really building? Is that what you're leaning into at this point?
Yeah, we're leaning heavily into the first party data for sure.
I'm here with Scott Felenstein, Chief Revenue Officer at NCM. Thank you to those who are watching at home. We have Amor from New York, Sally from California, Begum from Turkey, Anaram from India, RJ from India, Joseph from Pennsylvania, and Shahad from Saudi Arabia. Thank you for tuning in. If you have any questions, comments, feel free to leave them on our social channels, and we will try to get to them during this conversation. So outside of the digital out-of-home screens, how else are you thinking about expanding your business? Are there other ways that you're thinking of moving forward, presenting new opportunities for brands that maybe they didn't have in the past?
Yeah, I think we just announced a deal recently where we have YouTube inventory that we're selling. It's movie IP that gets uploaded to the internet that all gets collected. And then we're able to sell advertising on the YouTube platform against movie IP. So it's another way to reach movie audiences on a massive digital platform like YouTube. We're looking into relationship with TikTok as well. So lots of different ways we can engage moviegoers on the digital platforms as well. And then the digital out of home, obviously, that I mentioned before. And then unique ways that we want to use branded content. We have one of the best storytelling platforms that you can find out there. Where else can you tell a great story on a 50-foot screen with a super engaged audience? So we're looking to build out our branded content capabilities for 2021 and 2022 as well.
What is the opportunities there in the social media, the digital media space? You mentioned like YouTube and TikTok. Why are those attractive to you at this point and see them as an area for potential growth?
Well, they're such huge platforms. I mean, YouTube is pretty much the biggest platform on the planet. And if you can reach moviegoers at scale there, I think that's great for us. I think, any place where we can reach moviegoers at scale, obviously we have them when they're in our theaters and we can reach them on our digital platforms. But if we can find them in other places, I think that just gives clients another way to reach those consumers. And moviegoers, we know, are a really valuable audience.
Great. Well, I want to talk a little bit about the upcoming Upfront marketplace. But before we do, we have a message from our sponsor, Verizon. So Scott, how are you looking at working with brands as we move into the upfront selling season? What message are you taking out to the marketplace at this point? And what kinds of deals are you looking to strike that might be different in years past?
That's a really good question because it's a very different year for us as far as the upfront's concerned. And things have been pretty eye-opening for us. So at the end of last year, a lot of the focus was on how were the exhibitors making the experience of moviegoing safe. It shifted away from that because now we're seeing people back in a big way back at theaters, and people are understanding that people are going to come back and they're going to come back in massive amounts, and that's going to happen pretty quickly. Typically, our upfront, we have conversations, early in the year with buying and planning groups and with clients as they're making their plans for the upfront, and then we usually, wait a little bit till the end of the marketplace, and that's kind of when a lot of the cinema business, upfront business happens. We're having conversations earlier now because brands are looking for alternatives to linear TV because the GRP supply is just not going to be what it was a year ago. Like I mentioned before, with so much of the viewership moving to non-ad supported streaming, they've had to look elsewhere to find that reach, whether that's connected TV or digital or cinema. So we're having conversations with a lot of our partners from the last couple of years, lots of our partners that have been with us both on an upfront and scatter basis, and a lot of new partners that are interested in getting into cinema because we reach such a young audience. It's difficult to reach in other places. We've got a median age that's just under 30 years old. And we like I said, we've always been a great complement to television. And that's why people, I think, always look to cinema, because it always added additional reach. It always added unique reach. It still does all that, but can also replace some of the lost GRPs that you're not able to buy this year. So the conversations are very different. I think everybody's excited about a return, and the return to cinemas coming around at such a great time. If you have audiences coming back, maybe a little bit slower in May and then faster in third quarter, by fourth quarter, we'll be humming on all cylinders, and that'll be great for the upfront.
What do you think at this point in the marketplace is the biggest challenge for movie theater advertising?
I think for some clients is like, when do I jump back in? Some clients have already jumped back in. They're on screen now. I think some clients are saying, all right, I can get behind Memorial Day. So many people are going to be vaccinated by the end of May. I think a lot of audiences will be there. And I think others are going to wait until they see what happens over Memorial Day, and may wait till, the beginning of third quarter. I think it's really just a timing. As Cliff Marks always likes to say, there's nothing wrong with our medium. We still have the same great audience that we've always had. It's still an engaged audience. They're looking at a 50-foot screen. We reach the multicultural audience, all those things I mentioned before. It was just a smaller audience while we were waiting for all the big releases to come back. Now that all the big releases are come back, I mean, if you think of what happened with King Kong, if you wanted to, you could watch that movie at home if you were an HBO subscriber. But people still want to get out and have that experience, that communal experience. It's so different than watching a movie at home. You've always been able to watch great content at home, and you can still watch great content at home. But again, those 5 or 6 times a year when you want to go out and have some great communal experience, that's what you use the big screen for. And go to the movies.
I do want to talk about that idea a little bit more, though, especially this year when we're seeing some of the studios release their blockbuster films both at the same time in the theaters and on streaming. What are the implications of that moving forward, especially just from a business perspective? There's an obvious reason to do it this year as you wait to see how many consumers are willing to actually go back to the theater. But if that's a trend that moves forward, what are the potential implications for business?
Well, the interesting thing is Warner Media said they were going to be doing the day-and-date releases just for 2021, and then they would revisit it. And then they announced recently that 2022, they're going to go back to the exclusive window. I think what you're seeing is a lot of these deals that are being structured between the studios and the exhibitors are for shorter windows. And typically, if it was a 90-day window before, you don't necessarily need a 90-day window to get a huge box office out of the theatrical release. So I think you'll continue to see shorter windows. If it ends up being a 30-day window or 45-day window, we'll see where it all pans out. We're seeing shorter windows with a lot of the studios. We think that could be good for more content for consumers because you could have companies like Amazon and Netflix with a shorter window bring some content to the theaters, as well as some medium size releases and smaller releases might get a theatrical release that they wouldn't have otherwise gotten with a longer window. So we think shorter windows will probably be good from a content standpoint, probably good for consumers, and probably good for our business as it brings more consumers to the theaters.
How do you think during this time the movie business has changed more permanently?
That's a good question. I don't know. It remains to be seen. It's all kind of coming back right now, so I don't know. I think the biggest change will be the change in the windowing. I don't think that'll ever go back to those long windows, and I don't know that those long windows were necessarily necessary. Those just been around for a long time and kind of a legacy of the old business, and I think that'll be the biggest change. I still think you're going to see the best content in the world in our medium. And like I said, there's no replicating that experience at all.
We have a question from Matt on LinkedIn. How are you helping brands measure and compare engagement between cinema and social platforms?
How am I helping? That's a good question. Look, I think when you talk engagement, we can all be, the engagement that you're getting on your phone is a lot different than the engagement you're getting on the big screen. I think measurement is a key part of that, because what we always talk about is how engaged our audience is, and that's something that we prove out with a lot of third-party partners just to prove the engagement of the audience. And I think the engagement that you get in cinema with the big screen and the big sound is unmatched in anywhere in media.
We have another question from Somak on LinkedIn. How's the data being collected on movie theater demographics and ads? In India, for example, there's a bunch of ads that are same irrespective of the audiences. So I guess this also speaks to like targeting audiences. Is there ways and data collection being done to better target audiences, I guess both across screens and on theater screens?
Yeah, we're doing a lot of work in the data collection area to make sure that we can participate in targeted ads. I don't really know how to expand upon that beyond that.
And that's happening both digitally and in theater. Is that like a digital component of what you're doing?
It's mostly digital. Obviously, our medium is one-to-many. Which is why we started our digital business, so we could do more of the one-to-one targeting. And the ability to re-engage moviegoers after they leave the theaters is something that's really important to our business, and it allows us to do closed-loop attribution and see where people are going after they leave our theaters. So that's primarily the platform on which we're using it, which is why we've invested so much in our digital business.
So if we were to connect, a year from now, and assuming that, nothing changes in the current trajectory of how things are going, in COVID and all of that, like what do you hope to see change in movie theater advertising over the next year?
I hope to see a lot of brands that maybe before the pandemic didn't consider movie theater advertising or cinema advertising really look at the value that we bring to the table. I mean, when I came from the TV world 4 years ago, I was pleasantly surprised at how many brands didn't use cinema advertising. And it was amazing to me when you think about the fact that you've got a young audience and you look at how TV has aged up so much with a median age, in the high 50s or low 60s. If you're targeting 18 to 49-year-olds or 18 to 34-year-olds, or even the younger end of 25 to 54-year-olds, I couldn't believe how many brands weren't using cinema. So my hope is that coming out of the pandemic and the changes in media consumption behavior, that so many brands that didn't consider advertising in cinema will consider advertising in cinema and make it part of their foundational media plans, because it just makes all the sense in the world if you're trying to reach that young audience in an engaged environment. Great.
Scott, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for being here and enjoy the Oscars this weekend. Maybe you'll get to catch up on a couple of more before Sunday.
Yeah, I got a couple that I got to see. Thanks so much, Jeannie.
Thank you. And thank you to our sponsor, Verizon Media, for making this live stream happen. As always, thank you to our Ad Age crew, Alfred Mascaroni, Anna Sakula, Max Sternlith, and Elise Liffring for helping and being a part of the show. And thank you all for tuning in.